Good morning, my fellow Michiganders. Good morning, my fellow Americans. I wanted to go live this morning to let you know that tonight I'm going to go live again at 7 p.m. to talk about the mask in the schools and talk about the different scenarios and kind of talk about the big picture of things. Because obviously, just like many of you out there, and I was one of them too when that came out, I expected that, to be honest with you. I didn't think that it was just going to open up as normal. Even though there's a lot of other states right now that are going to open up as normal, Iowa is one of them. And so here we are again. Every state's going to make up their own rules and regulations. And unfortunately, Governor Whitmer is going down the road that she is. And so let's talk about some things. And I'm going to get into some very big details tonight about this. And right now, I just kind of want to give you a glimpse. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. And I got on this morning, I seen that everybody is reacting. And that's what we've been doing over the past several months is she comes out with something and react. And it's all this energy, which is a good thing. People have to get that energy out. We can't have this stuff built in because bad things happen. So it's good that everybody's voicing their perception, their concerns, which is awesome. But it almost is like when I lived in Florida for 3 years, and several years ago or a couple years back, there was like the storm of the century that they were tracking off the coast of Africa, and it was a slow moving storm. I mean, it was just like inching along, and the media, which we all know the media is very good at, built this thing up as some kind of catastrophic event. Like it was a category 5 and it was slowly coming across the Atlantic. And they did not know where it was going to hit. Obviously, they had all the spaghetti models, right? It was going to go up the East Coast. It's going to hit Florida. It's going to go to Mexico. It's going to hit Texas. Nobody knew. Nobody knows until 48 hours of what that storm is going to do, right? So for like 10 days, everybody was glued to the TV. All America was glued to the TV to see what was going to happen to the storm because it was like the biggest storm on record. I forget what it was called, but it was the biggest storm on record. So everybody was freaking out. Even everybody in Florida, everybody across the United States was like, oh my gosh, where is this thing going to hit? If it hits at a category 5, which is true. Category 5 hurricane is not good for anybody. But everybody was stocking up on supplies and food. They were shutting down schools and they were all just scared to death. They were preparing for the worst possible scenario and everybody was stressed out. Everybody. I had people that, because I love my people in Michigan, were calling me that cared about me, say, you have to get out of here. Even though we were inland, even if a storm surge came out, we were protected. Our house was brand new. It could withstand a category 5 hit, right? All the electrical was all underground because it's a new area. So we were protected, but people were really concerned that I was deciding to stay and ride this thing out and I was going to die. And everybody was calling me and texting, and here comes this hurricane, every day an inch closer. It was stressing everybody out. It was, and everybody was freaking out. Everybody's worried. It was a complete mess. And the media every day, that's all they focused on. Kind of what they focus on right now, right? To continue with the fear model, to continue with the narrative. And as that storm came closer and it was gaining strength and it circled around and ended up being a category 3 and it just kind of just barely hit up. Now, I think it did destroy the islands that it went through. I'm not second guessing any of that. But my whole point of this is it was 10 days. And everybody was stressed out. And it was a big storm. But thank God it weakened before it hit Florida and it didn't do a lot of damage. And so you got to remember, schools, folks, it's 2 months away, right? So they have a plan in place with the phase 5, the phase 4, the phase 3, and there's different criteria. And you got to think too, like they have to have that plan at least in place because, they can't just say, open up as normal, because what happens if it does start to spread, even though we know this virus isn't the virus that they keep telling it, but they're trying to play it safe, which I get. However, there's time for us to react, just like there's time for you to plan for the next 2 months for what your decision is. And so tonight, I'm going to go through a lot of these decisions for you and talk about the good and bad of each of what you decide to do, because guess what? It's your constitutional right to decide what's best for your family. I know from my family personally that my kid's not going to wear a mask. We're not going to go to school that has these kids wear masks. My kids aren't going to be a part of that. So if we can't find a school that's going to allow our kids to come in there, and I know there's some gray area in there. I mean, even if you look at the plan, it says, if the kid's not medically able to wear a mask, then they don't have to wear a mask. But it was very gray. What's the criteria? What's the perception? Do they need a doctor's excuse? I mean, do they need to prove medically, or is it just to parents? So that's the confusion, again, of what's out there. And so everybody's like, what the heck do I do? So there's going to be many different scenarios that you can do. But I'm going to talk about some of the scenarios that may happen into the fall, because I don't know. Something's not making sense to me, especially when there's other states, again, that are opening up as normal. And we have some states that are just locking it down. So I always want to be transparent. I always want to give you my perception based on the data at hand. And that's what I'm going to do again today. So there's 126,369 deaths of COVID, unfortunately, okay? 331 million of us in this beautiful country. So that is a 0.038% death rate, all right, which accounts to 0.00038 chance of you dying. Just to let you know, it's pretty low, pretty low. So let's just bring it up. Let's give you a hypothetical. Let's say 3.8% of the population dies from COVID. Do you realize that's 12.5 million people? That's 12.5 million Americans. That's 3.8%, okay? So we have 126,369 deaths, and that probably will go up, all right? And almost half of those deaths are in nursing homes. So again, it's about the elderly and immunocompromised. So we are making some pretty big decisions, and I'm just going to point this out right now, and I'm going to talk about this tonight a little bit more in detail. But we're making some pretty big decisions for these kids. And again, it doesn't make sense to me because some states are not doing this. They're opening up as normal. And now we have Michigan has these different phases and criteria. And what I want to point out is one of the criteria was kindergartners, I think through fifth grade, once they're in phase 4 or phase 5, I'll look at it and get in detail. You guys can read it for yourself. They don't need masks, but anybody from grade 6 up to 12 do. Okay. So that, to me, in my perception, that's kind of, we have kindergartners to grade 5 is the states of Ohio and Indiana again, who decided to open up. And then we have grade 6 to 12, which is the state of Michigan, which we're going to close them down. It's not going to jump the schools. And younger kids are going to be more apt to spread the virus than older kids, right? Because, hey, look, we all ate our own boogers when we were little. And so those are the things that you look at, and let's talk, let's have conversation. Because I had a conversation with a teacher yesterday who truly believes that the governor has saved us, that she believes that her constitutional freedoms weren't taken away. And that's fine. I love to have those conversations because it gives me a perception on the other side, which they don't know that they were taken from the beginning. When you're told that you can't go somewhere and you can't go fishing, when you can go in a kayak but you can't go in a motorboat, and you can go to a store but you can't buy certain goods, and you can't assemble because you're spreading COVID, right? Those are constitutional rights. And a lot of people don't understand that those were taken away, which never should be, right? So those are the conversations that we have to continue to have because, folks, 30 to 40, maybe even 50% of Michiganders out there support her, maybe even more. I don't know. I don't watch the polls, but the majority may think that she's actually making the best decisions for all of us to save us. A lot of people believe that. And so those are the things with all the petitions going on, especially the petitions. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'll find out if I'm wrong. But there's a couple petitions that they're trying to get signatures to get on the ballot for the population of Michigan to vote on. And what if the majority of the population doesn't support what we're doing, doesn't support those petitions, doesn't support the recall, right? So that's why we're so into the repeal 1945 law, because that's not going to the population. It's going to the legislators to vote on. And then it's done. It's law. There's no veto. And so those are the things as we move forward. We're always trying to do what's best for the movement, for our people, and get the best shot to get change done. Because holy cow, and I'm not saying the population is for or against. I don't know. But I do try to logically look at all scenarios so I can be the best leader that I can be. But if we go out and get all these signatures and we finally get it on the ballot and we're like, yes, and then the popular vote goes no, talking about getting kicked in the chums, I mean, we're going to be deflated, right? So our best option to me right now, and this may be proven wrong to me, but all I can do is give you my perception, is that repeal 1945 law, to get it in front of legislators and let them decide. And you know what? I hope they decide for us. We don't know. So these are all things that we try to do as a movement, as an organization, to try to put ourselves in a position and be congruent, be transparent, and continue to tell you guys the truth as what our truth is. Because our truth may not be somebody else's truth. And so as we have this conversation and we have these conversations with other people, we have to understand there's people out there that are scared to death. They really, truly believe that this virus is going to kill them. And some of them may have kids who are immunocompromised. Some of them may have parents or grandparents who are immunocompromised, and they're scared for them. And that's kind of like where we're at, or who's right or wrong. I don't know. But I do know with a death rate as of right now at 0.038% of the population of whole. And folks, the tests go up. The more we test, and the infection rate continues to go down, and the death rate continues to do well. Remember, the whole point of this whole thing from the very beginning was to do what? To not overwhelm the hospital system because they didn't have the proper PPE, right? And all that stuff. And we did that for the first 2 weeks. So I want to continue to remind everybody what the original goals were that this governor put down and not forget those. And how she didn't produce the data because she always said to flatten the curve, flatten the curve. And you can tell from the data now, we did it. So why did she continue to make those decisions? And those are the things that we have to hold accountable to our elected officials from here on out. So you have to remember all those things that we went through. And I know we have been through a lot of storms so far over the last several months. We have. And guess what? There's going to be more. But always remember, there's going to be sunshine in between those storms. And there's going to be time to recover and have a plan. And hey, look, we have a couple months to plan with the schools. And it's your constitutional right to decide what's best for your kid. If you decide to homeschool, awesome. If you decide to take your kid and put them in school and say they're not medically able to wear the mask, awesome. Or if you decide to say, hey, my kid is going to wear a mask, make sure you're being positive to your kid. And because these teachers, holy cow, they're in a tough position. You imagine trying to teach all day and wear a mask? I mean, these teachers, I feel sorry for them. I truly do. And the positions that our elected officials are putting them in. And look, like you heard it here first, the consequences of this, we don't know. There's never been any studies done. And that's the problem with America right now in the world is we got the CDC that recommends masks, and we got the WHO that says not to wear a mask. And then we have professionals, neurosurgeons, medical doctors on both sides calling out each other on who's right and who's wrong. And there's research on both sides. And there's data on both sides. And everybody like us are in the middle going, just tell me what to do. What's best for my kids? What's best for my family? And unfortunately, we can't because there's data support on both sides. So we have to do our best. But we can't shame people for wearing a mask, and we can't shame people for not wearing a mask. And I feel that's what's going on right now is if you're out in a mask in public, you get the old stink eye, right? But you don't know those people's positions, and they don't know your position. So we have to continue to have these conversations because I just got called out on one of my posts, said, well, what would you do if you were a superintendent or the principal and elected official and you had to protect all the bus drivers, the teachers, everything? What would you do? And I said, well, I'd probably do what Iowa did and just say, hey, let's open up as normal, especially when the death rate as of right now is 0.038%. And the data is showing that, yes, there's a lot of testing going on. And guess what? There's a lot of negatives and the infection rate continues to go down. And I'm hearing, and I haven't verified this yet, I'm hearing that if you test positive for COVID and you get tested positive, that's one. Then you go get tested again. They count that as two. Two infection tests that they put in the data, that's only one person. That's falsifying the data to me. And you can run statistical analysis and make stats point to your perception at all times. If anybody's ever took a statistics class, you can do that. You can take the data and manipulate it to hold to your truth. That's just true. Look it up, okay? So we're going to get in detail tonight, all right? I didn't want to get on here and ramble to all you guys this morning. I just want to get on here and tell you to take a deep breath. It's 2 months away. We have ample time to plan. We have ample time that this may all disappear in 2 months. I don't know if it is or not. We may be in, I don't know the phases. I can foresee right now that upper UP, Traverse City area will be in phase 5. Lower Michigan will be in phase 4. But what I don't like is her having the ability as, guess what happens in mid-October, cold and flu season. And if you look at what they're going to do to these kids, if they start having the sniffles or a fever, they got to go in quarantine for 14 days. They got to get tested, and they can't come back to school, I think, unless they test negative. So we're going to subject to our kids to all these tests, right? And then what happens if the cold and flu season starts going crazy? Are they just going to shut down schools again? And there's kids are going to be out of school for 4 months. So these are all things that we have to talk about moving forward. And we're going to talk about tonight the psychological ramifications of wearing a mask all day. You know, I hear the argument about homeschooling, about the biggest thing you always hear is, you know, homeschooling, they're not going to get the socialization. Okay, that's a good point, but what kind of socialization are they going to get in public schools when they're wearing a mask? right? And you're not reading lips, because a lot of communication is through the mouth, right? Reading lips, talking physiology. It's not voice, right? And not only that, there's social distancing. And now there's no gym class, there's no cafeteria, no social gatherings. So there goes that argument. I think my kids will get more socialization at home and allow the kids in the neighborhood to play after school. I don't know. I don't have all the right answers, but we do have to have conversations. And that's what this movement's about, is having these open conversations and kind of put it out there and to give you as much data and information that we can and perceptions. And then you need to make the best decision for your own children. And nobody can fault you for that. And that's why this movement is more like a family, and we're going to support each other. So be calm. I'll go on live tonight at 7 p.m. and then we'll talk about a lot of different things, and I'll reiterate some of the things that I said today or this morning, and then we'll get through it together. So just like, ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things get brighter, right? They will. I guarantee that. And obviously you all know right now that I'm not a singer. But if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? Okay? So hang in there, take a deep breath. We'll get through this just like anything else. And obviously a lot of things are coming up. But the storm will be coming, and we'll have to deal with it just like we dealt with every single storm. It's going to make us stronger. But the more conversations that we have, the more data and stuff that we can get out there, we're all going to get this together. We're going to get through this together. I guarantee it, okay? So God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan. And God bless these United States. And I get to work today. I get to serve my patients, and I'm excited. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.